Natalie Pierce stood in front of the bathroom mirror, studying the stranger looking back at her. 5 years of marriage had transformed her from a vibrant art teacher into someone she barely recognized. The woman staring back had dull eyes, conservative clothing, and a practiced smile that never reached her soul. She touched her face gently, wondering when she had agreed to become invisible. Her husband, Victor Pierce, was downstairs, buried in his laptop as always. The tech billionaire had built an empire creating software that connected millions of people worldwide. The irony was not lost on Natalie that the man who helped the world communicate had stopped talking to his own wife years ago. Their penthouse apartment in Manhattan was filled with expensive furniture and artwork, but it felt as empty as a museum after closing time. The charity gala tonight was the annual Technology Leaders Gala, an event where the most powerful people in the industry gathered to network and donate to various causes. Natalie had been getting ready for hours, choosing a modest beige dress that Victor had approved months ago. It was elegant, appropriate, and completely forgettable. Just like her, she descended the stairs carefully, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Victor was adjusting his bow tie in the hallway mirror, looking every bit the successful businessman he was. His dark suit fit perfectly, his hair was styled just right, and his watch cost more than most people earned in a year. He glanced at her briefly when she approached. "Ready?" he asked, not really looking at her. "Yes, do I look okay?" Natalie asked, hoping for some acknowledgement. Victor's eyes swept over her for maybe 2 seconds. "Fine. The car is waiting." That single word crushed something inside her. Fine. Not beautiful, not lovely, not even nice. Just fine. Like she was acceptable enough not to embarrass him. Natalie followed him to the car, swallowing the disappointment that had become her constant companion. An evening of shadows, the grand ballroom was spectacular. With crystal chandeliers, live orchestra music, and hundreds of elegantly dressed guests, waiters moved through the crowd with champagne and appetizers. Natalie recognized faces from magazines and television. This was Victor's world, where deals worth millions were made over cocktails and small talk. Victor immediately joined a group of executives, diving into conversation about market trends and upcoming mergers. Natalie stood beside him, holding her champagne glass, smiling when appropriate. She had perfected this role over the years. The silent wife, the decorative accessory, the woman who never interrupted or demanded attention. Hours passed in this familiar pattern. Natalie made polite conversation with other wives, most of whom seemed to be playing the same role she was. They talked about charity work, interior design, and vacation homes. Safe topics that required no real emotion or honesty. The breaking point, the orchestra, began playing a beautiful waltz, and couples moved on to the dance floor. Natalie watched them, remembering a time when she and Victor used to dance together. Back when he looked at her like she mattered. Back when he noticed her. She gathered her courage and gently touched his arm. "Victor, they're playing that song from our wedding. Would you dance with me? Just one dance?" He turned to her with irritation crossing his face. The conversation in their circle stopped as everyone watched. Natalie felt her cheeks flush, suddenly aware that she had interrupted something important. Victor pulled his arm away from her touch. "Natalie, I'm discussing a potential partnership worth $300 million. This is not the time for dancing." "I know, but it's just one dance." "We haven't danced in so long," she said softly. Hearing the pleading in her voice and hating herself for it, Victor sighed deeply, a sound filled with frustration and contempt. He looked at her with an expression she would never forget. Cold, distant, and cruel. "Honestly, Natalie, you've become so needy. You don't inspire any desire in me anymore. Stop acting like a lovesick teenager. Go find someone else to bother because I have actual important work to do here." The silence that followed felt like the entire room had stopped breathing. Natalie heard someone gasp. She saw the other men look away uncomfortably. One woman's eyes filled with pity. The humiliation washed over Natalie like ice water. Freezing her in place, her hands began shaking so badly that her champagne glass nearly slipped from her fingers. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. Her throat had closed completely. Victor had already turned back to his conversation, dismissing her as if she were an annoying interruption. As if he had not just destroyed her in front of everyone, the decision Natalie took one step backward, then another. She forced her legs to move, walking through the ballroom with her head held high, even though she felt like she was drowning. She collected her coat and purse, called for a car, and left without waiting for Victor. She would not spend another second pretending everything was fine. During the drive home, Natalie stared out the window at the city lights blurring past. She held back tears through pure determination. She would not cry in front of the driver, only when she was safely inside their bedroom, door locked. Did she allow herself to break down? She sank onto the floor, still wearing her beige dress, and cried. She cried for the years of being ignored, for the woman she had become, for accepting treatment that no person should ever accept. But somewhere beneath the tears, something else was growing. Anger, determination, a refusal to continue living this way. Natalie pulled herself up and looked in the mirror. Through her tears, she saw a woman with smeared makeup and red eyes. But she also saw something else awakening. Strength. Purpose. A woman who was done being invisible. Never again, she whispered to her reflection. Never again will I let him make me feel worthless. She picked up her phone and texted her best friend, Rachel. I need you tomorrow morning. Something important. The response came immediately. I'll be there at 9. Love you. Natalie changed into comfortable clothes and climbed into bed. Victor's side remained empty. He would probably stay at the gala until late, networking and making deals. For the first time in 5 years, his absence felt like relief rather than rejection. As she lay in the darkness, Natalie felt clarity replacing confusion. Tomorrow would be the first day of becoming herself again. She would do it without asking permission, without seeking approval, without needing Victor Pierce to validate her existence. The woman who had walked into that gala was gone. Tomorrow, someone new would begin to emerge. Natalie woke the next morning with swollen eyes but a clearer mind than she had experienced in years. Victor's side of the bed remained untouched. He had not come home at all. The old Natalie would have panicked, would have called him repeatedly, would have worried herself sick. The new Natalie simply got up, showered, and waited for Rachel. Rachel arrived exactly at 9, carrying coffee and pastries. She took one look at Natalie's face and immediately wrapped her in a tight hug. They sat on the terrace overlooking Central Park as Natalie recounted every painful detail of the previous night. Rachel listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each word. That absolute monster, Rachel finally said, her voice shaking with fury. Natalie, how long are you going to let him treat you like you're nothing? Natalie stared at her coffee cup. I don't know anymore, Rachel. I've tried everything to make him happy. I dress how he wants. I stay quiet at events. I never complain when he works every night until midnight. But nothing I do matters. Last night, I realized he doesn't even see me as a woman anymore. I'm just part of the furniture to him. Rachel reached across and gripped her hands firmly. Then stop trying to please him. When was the last time you did something that made you happy? When was the last time you felt alive? The shopping trip. Natalie thought hard, searching through years of memories. Everything had revolved around Victor's schedule, his preferences, his business events, his needs. She could not remember a single thing she had done purely for herself in the past 5 years. I honestly can't remember, she admitted quietly. Rachel stood up with determination blazing in her eyes. Then today is the day we change that. Get dressed. We're going shopping. Real shopping. Not at those boring stores Victor likes. We're going to find clothes that make you feel powerful, that make you feel beautiful, that make you feel like yourself again. Rachel, I don't know. What if Victor gets angry? Let him get angry, Rachel said firmly. Natalie, wake up. He already humiliated you in the worst possible way in front of everyone. What exactly do you have to lose now? Your dignity. He already took that. Your happiness? He destroyed that years ago. The only thing you have left to lose is yourself. And I refuse to let that happen. They spent the afternoon in trendy boutiques in Soho, places Natalie had never dared enter before. Rachel pulled dress after dress from the racks, each one more daring than the last. Fitted silhouettes, bold colors, shorter hemlines, everything Victor would have called inappropriate or attention-seeking. "Try this one," Rachel insisted, handing Natalie a stunning emerald green dress. It was short, hitting mid-thigh, with a fitted bodice that would show her figure instead of hiding it. The fabric shimmered beautifully in the light. "Rachel, this is too much." "Victor would hate this. He'd say it's too revealing." "Perfect," Rachel said with a satisfied smile. "Then it's exactly what you should wear." The reflection of change in the fitting room, Natalie slipped into the dress and gasped at her reflection. The dress hugged her curves in a way that made her feel powerful instead of exposed. It showed her legs, her shoulders, her figure. She looked like a woman who knew her worth, who commanded attention, who refused to hide in the shadows. "Oh my goodness, Natalie," Rachel gasped when she emerged from the fitting room. "You look absolutely stunning. That dress was made for you. You have to buy it right now." Natalie bought the emerald dress, and for other outfits she never would have chosen before. Then they went to an upscale salon where Rachel knew the best stylists in the city. Natalie asked for something different, something bold, something that would make her feel like a new person. The stylist worked magic, giving her a modern cut with soft layers that framed her face beautifully. When Natalie returned to the penthouse that evening, Victor still was not home. She had the apartment to herself, which felt like a blessing. She needed time alone for what she was about to do. The bold statement, Natalie showered and carefully applied makeup in a way that made her eyes dramatic and her lips look full and confident. She styled her new hair in loose waves that fell past her shoulders. Then she put on the emerald green dress. Standing before the full-length mirror, Natalie barely recognized herself. She looked confident, beautiful, powerful. She looked like a woman who existed for herself, not for anyone else's approval. For the first time in years, she felt like Natalie Carter again, the art teacher who used to laugh freely and dream boldly. Before she became Mrs. Victor Pierce, she picked up her phone and began taking photos. It felt awkward at first, but gradually she found angles that felt natural, poses that felt authentic. She selected the best photo, one where she sat on the velvet chair near the window, the emerald dress contrasting beautifully against her skin. Her gaze direct and confident, Natalie opened Instagram, an app she rarely used, and began writing a caption. Her hands shook slightly as she typed, "Sometimes we need to remember our own worth. Rediscovering yourself is not selfish, it's survival." Her finger hovered over the post button for what felt like forever. She thought about Victor, about his reaction, about the consequences. Then she thought about his words from the night before, about how he had made her feel worthless in front of everyone. "Let's see who's desirable now," she whispered and pressed post. The photo went live. Natalie tossed her phone onto the bed and exhaled deeply, feeling a mixture of terror and liberation. For the first time in 5 years, she had done something completely for herself. Without asking permission, without seeking approval, without caring about the consequences, she changed into comfortable pajamas and tried to sleep, but her mind kept racing. What had she done? Would Victor be furious? Would people judge her? But beneath the anxiety, she felt something else. Freedom. The exhilarating, terrifying freedom of choosing herself first. The viral moment the next morning. Natalie woke to her phone buzzing constantly. Confused and still half asleep, she reached for it and froze at what she saw. Over 7,000 likes, hundreds of comments, dozens of direct messages. The photo had gone viral overnight. She sat up in bed, fully awake now, scrolling through the overwhelming response. The comments were filled with compliments and encouragement. Absolutely gorgeous. Where have you been hiding? This woman is breathtaking. That confidence is everything. Natalie Pierce, you're glowing. This is your moment. People she barely knew were commenting with fire emojis and hearts. Women from her old social circles were genuinely surprised by her transformation. Former colleagues from her teaching days were cheering her on. Even some celebrities had liked the photo. Rachel called before 8 in the morning, practically screaming with excitement. "Have you seen it? have you seen what's happening? Natalie, you broke the internet. Everyone is talking about you. I'm looking at it right now. I can't believe this is real, Natalie said, still scrolling in disbelief. Believe it, honey. The entire New York social scene is buzzing about you. And you know who hasn't commented or liked or even viewed the photo? Your dear husband. Natalie checked. Rachel was right. Victor had not interacted with the post at all. He was in Los Angeles for a technology conference and had barely responded to her messages in 3 days. As always, work came first. He probably hasn't even seen it yet, Natalie said. He's been in meetings nonstop. Oh, he'll see it, Rachel said with dangerous satisfaction in her voice. Trust me, he'll see it. And when he does, things are going to get very interesting. The conference room discovery, 3,000 miles away in a luxury hotel conference room in Los Angeles. Victor Pierce sat through a presentation on blockchain technology integration. The numbers on the screen should have had his complete attention. But he noticed 4 of the executives across the table whispering and glancing at their phones, smiling at something. Gentlemen, if you're going to be distracted by social media instead of focusing on this presentation, perhaps we should reschedule, Victor said sharply. Thomas Wright, a venture capitalist Victor had known for years, looked up with an amused expression. Sorry, Victor. We were just looking at a photo that's been making rounds in our circles. Quite impressive, actually. What does a photo have to do with this meeting? Victor asked impatiently. Thomas paused, then smiled. Though it is your wife in the photo, I have to say, I never realized Natalie was so stunning. You're a very fortunate man, Victor. Victor's frown deepened. What are you talking about? Show me. Thomas turned his phone around. On the screen was a photo of Natalie, but not the Natalie Victor knew. This woman wore a short emerald green dress that showed her legs in curves. Her makeup was dramatic, her hair was styled in soft waves, her expression was confident and captivating. She looked like she belonged on a magazine cover, like someone who commanded attention and knew it. When did Natalie start posting things like this? Another executive asked, leaning in to see better. She's gorgeous. No offense, Victor, but you never mentioned your wife looked like that. Victor took the phone from Thomas's hand, staring at the image. The photo had over 9,000 likes now. He scrolled through the comments, his jaw tightening with each one. Men were openly flirting in the comments, some being quite forward with their admiration. Women were praising her appearance and confidence. If you ever get tired of him? I know plenty of people who would appreciate you, one comment read, with dozens of likes underneath it. That dress is everything. You look amazing. Victor Pierce is a lucky man. Hopefully, he knows it. Victor's grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles turned white. She's never posted anything like this before, he said through clenched teeth, handing the phone back. She should post more often, Thomas said casually. That kind of confidence is attractive. You're lucky, Victor. Very lucky. Lucky. That word echoed in Victor's mind mockingly. He did not feel lucky. He felt threatened, exposed, angry, and something else he could not quite name. Jealous, possessive. Both the confrontation, the moment the meeting ended. Victor went straight to his hotel room and pulled out his own phone. He rarely used Instagram, considering it a waste of time, but now he opened the app and found Natalie's profile. There was the photo even more striking on his own screen. Now it had over 12,000 likes. He read every single comment, his anger building with each one. Men he recognized from business events from their social circle were commenting with obvious interest. Some were even sending her direct messages. She could see the notification count for. Victor stared at his phone screen, unable to look away from the flood of comments and messages directed at Natalie. His wife, his Natalie, except she did not look like his Natalie anymore. She looked like a woman who had stepped out of his shadow and into her own spotlight. And he hated that he only noticed her beauty when hundreds of other men were noticing it too. He called her immediately, his hands trembling with a mixture of rage and something deeper he refused to acknowledge. She answered on the third ring, her voice calm and steady. Hello, Victor. Take that photo down. Right now, he commanded, his voice hard as steel. There was a pause on the other end. Good morning to you, too. How's the conference? I'm not playing games, Natalie. Delete that photo immediately. You're making us both look ridiculous. You're embarrassing yourself and me. Embarrassing? Natalie's voice remained eerily calm. The only person who embarrassed me recently was you, Victor. At the charity gala, in front of everyone? Remember what you said to me? Victor clenched his jaw. He remembered the gala, remembered being annoyed with Natalie for interrupting his business discussion. He had said something harsh, he knew that much, but in his mind, it was not as significant as she was making it seem. That was different. I was working. You interrupted an important conversation. You told me I didn't inspire any desire in you anymore. You told me to go bother someone else. You humiliated me in front of a dozen people, Victor. That photo stays up. Natalie, listen to me carefully. I'm flying back to New York tonight. When I get home, we're going to discuss this properly. Delete the photo now, and we can move past this little rebellion of yours. Natalie laughed, a sound Victor had not heard in years. It was not her polite practiced laugh. It was genuine and filled with something that sounded like freedom. Little rebellion? Victor, this isn't rebellion. This is me remembering who I am. The photo stays up. I'll see you when you get home. Shh. She hung up before he could respond. Victor stared at his phone in disbelief. Natalie had never hung up on him before. She had never refused a direct request. She had never laughed at him. Something had shifted, and he was not sure how to handle it. Victor caught the earliest flight back to New York, canceling the rest of his conference appearances. During the entire 6-hour journey, he kept checking Natalie's Instagram post. The likes kept climbing. Now it was at over 20,000. The comments continued to pour in. Many from men who were being far too forward for Victor's comfort by the time his car pulled up to their penthouse building. Victor had worked himself into a state of controlled fury. He rode the private elevator up, rehearsing the conversation he would have with Natalie. She would understand that this behavior was unacceptable. She would delete the photo. Things would return to normal. He opened the apartment door and stopped in his tracks. Natalie was in the living room, wearing jeans and a simple white blouse, her new hairstyle framing her face beautifully. She was painting on a canvas set up near the windows, something he had not seen her do in years. Classical music played softly in the background. She looked up when he entered, completely calm. Victor, you're home early. We need to talk, now. He set down his briefcase with more force than necessary. Natalie set down her paintbrush carefully and turned to face him. All right, let's talk. The confrontation begins. What were you thinking, posting that photo? Do you have any idea how many people have seen it? How many men are making inappropriate comments? You're my wife, Natalie. You represent me and my company. Natalie stood up slowly, wiping paint from her hands with a cloth. I represent myself, Victor. I'm a person, not a brand extension. Don't be naive. Everything we do reflects on each other. That photo makes you look desperate for attention. Desperate. Natalie's voice remained calm, which somehow made Victor even angrier. I posted one photo of myself looking confident and happy. That's desperate? You're dressed provocatively, seeking validation from strangers on the internet. It's embarrassing. Natalie walked closer to him. And Victor noticed something different in her eyes. Steel. Determination. Something that had not been there before. You want to talk about embarrassing, Victor? Let's talk about the charity gala. Let's talk about how you told me I didn't inspire desire in you anymore. In front of your colleagues? In front of people we know? You want to discuss embarrassing behavior? Let's start there. Victor felt a flicker of guilt, but pushed it aside. I was frustrated. You interrupted an important business discussion for something trivial. Asking my husband to dance with me is trivial. When I'm discussing a $300 million deal, yes. The truth surfaces. Natalie laughed again, that same free sound that unsettled him. Do you hear yourself, Victor? Everything is about your business. Your deals. Your success? Your career? When did I stop mattering? When did we stop being partners? When did I become just another piece of furniture in this apartment? That's not fair. I've given you everything. This penthouse, clothes, jewelry, anything you could want. Except yourself. Except your time. Except your attention. Except the bare minimum of respect and affection. Natalie's voice finally showed emotion, not anger, but sadness. Victor, when was the last time you really looked at me? When was the last time we had dinner together? When was the last time you asked me how I was feeling? When was the last time you treated me like I mattered? Victor opened his mouth to respond, but found he had no answer. He could not remember the last time they had done any of those things. Work had consumed him completely. Building his empire had taken precedence over everything else. That's what I thought, Natalie said softly. You can't remember either. The unexpected visitor before Victor could respond. His phone rang. He glanced at the screen and saw it was his assistant. He was about to ignore it when Natalie spoke. Go ahead. Answer it. Work always comes first anyway. The accusation in her tone made him want to prove her wrong, but habit took over. He answered the call. Mr. Pierce, I'm sorry to interrupt, but James Chen from Horizon Industries has been trying to reach you urgently. He says it's about a potential collaboration and specifically asked if Mrs. Pierce would be available for a meeting as well. Victor frowned. Why would he need to meet with my wife? He mentioned seeing her recent social media presence and was impressed by her background in art education. He's looking for someone to consult on their new educational technology platform. He specifically requested her expertise. Victor felt his jaw tighten. James Chen was a billionaire in his own right, running one of the most successful tech companies in Asia. He was also known for being charming, handsome, and unmarried. Tell him I'll get back to him, Victor said curtly, and ended the call. Natalie raised an eyebrow. What was that about? Nothing. Just work. It sounded like it involved me. Victor hesitated, then decided honesty might be strategic. James Chen wants to meet with you about consulting on an educational technology project. Obviously, that's not appropriate. Why not? Natalie's expression was genuinely curious. I have a master's degree in art education. I taught for 3 years before we got married. Why wouldn't it be appropriate for me to consult on an educational project? Because you're my wife. It would look like you're using my connections, or it would look like I'm a qualified professional being offered work in my field, which I am. The shift in power Victor felt control slipping from his grasp. Natalie, you're not seriously considering taking meetings with other men, are you? Especially after posting that photo. Other men? Natalie's eyes flashed. You mean professional colleagues who see value in my expertise? Yes, Victor, I am considering it. I'm considering a lot of things I haven't considered in 5 years. What's that supposed to mean? Natalie walked to the window, looking out over Central Park. It means I've spent 5 years making myself smaller, quieter, less vibrant, so that I wouldn't outshine you or distract you or inconvenience you. I gave up teaching because you said it didn't fit with your lifestyle. I stopped painting because you said the smell of paint bothered you. I dressed how you wanted, acted how you wanted, became who you wanted, and you still looked right through me. That's not true. I've always appreciated you. Natalie turned back to face him, and Victor saw tears in her eyes for the first time. No, Victor. You appreciated having a wife who didn't cause problems. You appreciated having someone who looked appropriate at events. You appreciated having a woman who knew her place, but you never actually saw me. Not really, Natalie. Come on. You're being dramatic, am I? Tell me 3 things I care about. Tell me what my favorite book is. Tell me what I dream about. Tell me anything about me that isn't related to how I serve your life. Victor opened his mouth, then closed it. He realized with growing horror that he could not answer a single one of those questions. When had he stopped knowing his own wife? The final decision, that's what I thought, Natalie said, wiping away a tear. Victor, I don't hate you. But I can't keep living like this. I can't keep being invisible. That photo you're so angry about? That was the first time in 5 years I felt seen. Not by you, but by myself. I saw myself again, and I realized how much I had lost. So what are you saying? You want a divorce? Victor felt panic rising in his chest at the thought. I'm saying I want to exist again. Whether you can handle that or not is up to you. Victor's phone buzzed with another call, then another. His assistant, his partners, his board members. Everyone wanted to talk about deals, about meetings, about the next big thing. The sounds that had always excited him now felt hollow. He looked at Natalie, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in years. She was beautiful, strong, talented, and standing right in front of him. Yet somehow she had been invisible to him. He had been so focused on building his empire that he had failed to notice he was losing something far more valuable. I don't want to lose you, he said quietly, the admission costing him more than any business deal ever had. Natalie smiled sadly. Victor, you lost me a long time ago. The question is whether you want to find me again, and whether I want to be found by you. The unexpected turnover the following days, something unexpected happened. Natalie did take the meeting with James Chen, and it turned into a legitimate consulting position. She began working on educational content for his new platform. Rediscovering her passion for teaching and art, she started posting more on social media. Sharing her work, her thoughts, her rediscovered creativity, her following grew to over 100,000 people. Women reached out saying her transformation had inspired them. Magazines requested interviews. She was offered a position teaching art workshops at a prestigious community center. The woman who had been invisible was suddenly everywhere. Victor watched all of this from the sidelines. His feelings a complicated mixture of pride, jealousy, regret, and something he had not felt in years. Genuine admiration for his wife. He tried spending more time at home, tried having conversations with Natalie, tried to rebuild what he had destroyed through years of neglect. Some evenings, they talked like they used to, sharing meals and actually listening to each other. Other times, the distance between them felt impossible to cross. The choice one evening. 3 months after the infamous photo, they sat together on the terrace watching the sunset over Manhattan. Natalie had just returned from teaching her first art workshop. She was glowing with happiness, more vibrant than Victor had seen her in years. You were right about me, Victor said quietly. I stopped seeing you. I stopped appreciating you. I took you for granted and treated you like you were just part of the scenery. Natalie looked at him, surprised by his honesty. I don't know if I can fix what I broke, Victor continued. I don't know if you even want me to try. But I want you to know that I see you now. Really see you. And what I see is remarkable. Natalie was quiet for a long moment, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Victor, I appreciate you saying that. I really do. But seeing me now, when other people see me, when I'm successful again, when I'm getting attention, that's not enough. I needed you to see me when I was struggling, when I was lost, when I was asking you to dance at that gala. That's when I needed you. I know, and I failed you completely. The resolution Natalie stood up and walked to the edge of the terrace. I've spent 3 months rediscovering who I am. I've remembered that I'm creative, passionate, capable. I've remembered that I have value beyond being someone's wife. And that feels incredible. I'm glad you found yourself again, Victor said, and he meant it. Natalie turned to face him. The thing is, Victor, I'm not sure there's room in this version of my life for the old version of us. I can't go back to being invisible. I won't. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking if we can find a new version. One where we're both visible. Where we're both valued. Where we're actually partners instead of just two people living in the same space. Natalie studied him carefully, searching for sincerity. That would require real change, Victor. Not just words, but actions. It would mean you actually showing up, being present, making me a priority, not an afterthought. And I want to try, if you'll let me. The silence stretched between them, filled with years of hurt, weeks of transformation, and the possibility of something new. Finally, Natalie spoke. I'm not making any promises, Victor. But I'm willing to see if you're serious about change. Real change. But understand this clearly. I'm not the same woman you married. I'm not going to shrink myself down anymore. I'm not going to be quiet or convenient or invisible. If you want to be in my life, you're going to have to accept all of me. Victor stood and walked to her side. I don't want the old version of you. I want the woman standing in front of me right now. The one who's strong enough to demand what she deserves. The one who's brave enough to fight for herself. That's the woman I want to build a new life with, if you'll have me. 6 months later, Natalie stood in the same ballroom where Victor had humiliated her. But everything was different now. She wore a stunning red dress that she had chosen herself. Her hair was styled beautifully and her confidence radiated from every pore. She was there for an award ceremony honoring her work in art education. Victor stood beside her. But this time, he was not networking or checking his phone. He was watching her with genuine pride as she accepted her award and gave a speech about the importance of maintaining your identity and self-worth. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Victor was the first on his feet, clapping louder than anyone. As Natalie walked back to their table, he pulled out her chair and whispered in her ear, "You're remarkable. I'm so proud of you." Natalie smiled at him, a real smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you for seeing me." The orchestra began playing a waltz, the same song from that night 6 months ago. Victor stood and extended his hand to Natalie. "May I have this dance?" he asked, his voice filled with emotion. Natalie looked at his outstretched hand, then at his face. She saw genuine love there, hard-earned and real. She took his hand. "Yes, you may." As they moved onto the dance floor, Natalie realized that the photo that had changed everything was still up on her Instagram. It had over 500,000 likes now, but she barely thought about it anymore. That photo had been necessary to wake herself up, to remind herself of her worth. But she no longer needed external validation to know her value. She had found herself again, and in the process, she had discovered that the most important person who needed to see her, desire her, and value her was herself. Everything else, including whether her marriage survived, was secondary to that fundamental truth. The woman who had been called undesirable had proved that she was extraordinary. Not to Victor, not to the thousands of people on social media, but to herself. And that was the only proof that truly mattered.